Thank you, Eric. A very great opportunity for us to be reconnecting with the S4 and the community. So wanted to maybe start by asking a little bit, if you could talk a little bit about yourself, your role, your experience.
So I've been close with SAP for 25 years, and that actually also marks my entire professional experience. Actually, throughout my career, I've had various roles at SAP. I started out in consulting. I've done sales. I've worked in strategy. I've worked in support. I've worked in development. I worked for a long time in our industry organization. And currently, my job at SAP is I'm the head of product marketing for our cloud ERP portfolio. So that includes our predominantly our public cloud edition solution, as well as our private cloud edition solution, as well as our finance and supply chain.
In terms of the SAP, could you talk about a little bit of the SAP strategy and vision when it comes down to ERP?
We're unique a little bit in this way, in a good way, right? And I think comparatively to when we look at our competitors in the market, we have two very strong offerings of cloud ERP. And I think that's unique that we have two, but there's a very good reason for that, right? SAP, obviously, almost as the founder of ERP, right? We've been around for 50 years. We have an incredibly large installed base, customers who have invested a lot in the SAP. So, when we were making that transition to cloud, we really needed an offering in the space which allowed our, large existing installed base to go to the cloud in a non-disruptive way, as well as have a path for net new customers coming in. So from that perspective, we have two offerings. We call them Rise and Grow. Hopefully the community is familiar with them. Rise really is designed for our installed base customers. It's based on our private cloud edition solution. And it's really how we take our existing installed base, move them to the cloud at their pace, work with Signavio to standardize processes, leverage our business technology platform to take out modifications so that they get more to a clean core. And really, it's a multi-step journey, leveraging the asset they have. When we look at bringing new logos into the SAP family, we're looking at GROW. GROW is based on our public cloud edition solution, and it's about quick time to value, right? It's always a greenfield new implementation. And then maybe to close that off from a strategy perspective, right? When you look at our strategy, we kind of have that sunrise chart. And at the bottom, we see in dark blue ERP and our business technology platform. And they're a different color, and they're a foundation of our strategy. And that's just not, a graphical choice we made. That graphic really presents our strategy. We lead with ERP and BTP in our portfolio strategy. That's how we move our install base to the cloud, and that's how we bring new customers in. But that's also the starting point for us to leverage the other side of the portfolio as well.
What are you seeing in terms of customer needs on the market? What are the customers looking, and what are the needs in regards to ERP?
Maybe we start like even if the evolution of ERP, right? I think ERP was incredibly relevant, and it was like like when I joined and Leonardo, when you started, right, in the late 90s, early 2000s, we had Y2K, we had the Euro coming in. There was a lot of push on business transformation or redesign of processes, which made ERP, a massive topic in the boardroom. And then I think that kind of went down a little bit. When I see today, and when I talk to customers today, and when I'm talking to C-levels or I'm talking to executives at our companies, ERP really is a board level topic again, and it's a topic for multiple reasons, right? And so maybe not starting with the technology, but why ERP is so important. And one part of it is just the massive amount of business model change. Every industry lines are blurring. Companies are moving from traditional selling products to becoming outcome-based or a service-based company, or software is so prevalent in all industries that really drives the business model. So, ERP needs to become an enabler and agile, that they can actually be agile to adopt those business models. And I think, and I'll get to that in a second, the way ERP was implemented, in the early 2000s became a very rigid asset. The other part, which I hear a lot about, is sustainability. From an SAP perspective, the way we look at it is we kind of defined what the general ledger was of the financials and what we report to the market. And I believe carbon accounting, sustainability reporting will hit that same market as well. So in 5 to 6 years, just as we just had our quarterly earnings, I think in 5 to 6 years, companies will be equally presenting those numbers from a sustainability and carbon accounting perspective as well. And then the third topic always does still remain, right? Like how do you become more efficient and more effective? And so that's automating processes, taking inefficiencies out of it. And particularly, I think right now with AI, that's putting that into hyperspeed. So the three elements around business model change and agility, sustainability, and efficiency, and then bringing that back to ERP of those three business needs. What that really requires you to have is an agile ERP asset, and I think that really then comes back to where ERP needs to be today. To do that, regardless if you grow and rise, where our customers want to be and where customers want to be from a cloud paradigm perspective is that they're innovation ready or that they consume innovation on a continuous basis, right? And that really requires you to be upgrading on a regular basis, which requires you to have an asset which is lean, which has a clean core, which is standardized. Now, the way with Rise and Grow, you get there in different ways, but the outcome is the same, right? All customers want to be innovating on a regular basis so that they can meet those needs around business model change, sustainability, leveraging generative AI. And that's where I think ERP has just come to the forefront, because in some areas it's become an impediment, but it really should become an enabler.
And now in terms of the decision process for customers on how to move forward, how to get started, and what are the biggest considerations when going to S/4HANA Cloud?
Yeah, and this might be a little bit of a strange answer coming from a technology firm, right? But I'm actually going to put technology to the side for a second. Actually, I think to move to cloud, regardless how you do it with Rise and Grow, requires also a paradigm shift within companies. And I think that paradigm shift in the sense of culture and how you look at it and how you adapt within the organization is probably the most important shift we need to make. And I'm going to use actually one of the customers that was at the forefront of adopting our public cloud edition solution. That was PwC. So back in 2016, we started working with them to start that solution. And, they were an SAP customer for a long time. They had multiple systems around the globe, highly modified, non-standardized around the globe as well. And they came to us and they said, SAP, we want a standardized system and we want to operate that around the globe. And yes, technology played an important role in that. But actually what was the most important part was working with PwC to say, okay, out of the box, 80% of what a company does, doesn't matter where you are, is a commodity process. Companies might disagree, but generally that is the case, right? And for that 80% of which is out of the box, an ERP vendor like SAP, who's known for their industry best practices, you got to trust us that that's the way to work along those lines. Because by adopting that, when you upgrade on a regular basis, you're able to adopt new innovation. And that really required PwC to look at their processes and say, the way we work right now is maybe not best practice and we need to change it, right? That was one element of it. There were parts where we learned from PwC and said, hey, that actually needs to be in our solution, right? So we added it to roadmap, and because they can innovate so quickly on a quarterly basis, they were able to adopt it. And thirdly, there were parts to PwC that was unique, but it was also a differentiator for them. And that's where the BTP plays an incredibly important role.
Yeah, and just adding to that, we've been running S/4HANA public edition professional services since 2016 and being one of the first ones. We're super happy. And when you talk about the agility of going through, we've been through 16 upgrades so far, right?
I love how you brought that to life and totally forgot how important, beyond technology was early on in shaping our solution as well. But you framed it very nicely, right? So since 2016, you've done 16 upgrades, right? And that might sound a little bit strange to the SAP community that's on an on-premise product right now or other ones where, the mindset still a little bit is where you bring the asset life and then you don't touch it, right? And I think that's another really important cloud paradigm, which I think is different, is that the ERP world used to be like a finite thing, right? The ERP life was like a moment in time, right? And that moment in time was kind of anchored when you did it, and then you upgraded 7 years later. Whereas it's now not so much anymore just one moment in time, but it's a continuous motion of where you do things.
And try to be that company that we're saying to customers over and over, and don't try to become a software company. You run a business on such an industry, right? Focus on your industry. Don't try to become a software company. You're paying SAP to innovate for you, and the best way to adopt is adopt fast. Eric, do you have questions for us representing here, myself representing the community, now that we have this opportunity to get closer?
So I'm just kind of coming new into the community, and I strongly believe in the power of communities, right? That's why I love working with our user groups, because that really, at a grassroots level, represents often the end users that are working with our product. I always, by the way, love going into customers and I see SAP screens. It just makes me so proud to see that, right? So I want to really tap into the feedbacks and what's really happening at the kind of grassroots level of the end user from an SAP perspective, and understand, from an end user perspective, how they see it, right? Like, what is their impediments to change, how cloud is moving, what they're leaving. So, that's that's where I really appreciate, Leonardo. I know you have a strong following here, right? Like, I hope this really starts a dialogue to really kind of reach the masses and get that feedback and start a dialogue going. Because at the end of the day, it's the end users in the community that drives SAP.
I'm going to give you a little bit of feedback on let's start on the partner side, right? We have the two hats, we're customers and partners. So on the partner side, and seeing that with colleagues and the community, it has been a journey for the partners to adopt cloud mindsets, learn S4, just shift on the commercial models. But I think that the partner ecosystem has come a long way. The biggest one is that cloud mindset shift of fit to standard. As you said, we've been working with SAP for over 25 years, and for over 25 years, we've been doing whatever the customer imagined.
Exactly.
And our role is to say no. Our role is to push back and say, why you really need this? Prove that makes sense, because I don't think for you, Mr. Customer, that is the way to go. You're going to end up in a dead end, because investing on something that, so that discussion, right? That discussion needs to take place, and it is getting people out of that comfort zone of working in a certain way forever, and now it's different. It's cloud mindset. Keep code clean, and invest where it needs to be invested. I had collected a couple of questions from the community, and they were around adoption rates and what could be hurdles or what could be blocking customers from adopting S/4HANA Cloud. So you mentioned before a large number of customers coming in, but what are you seeing on the market from an SAP perspective as these hurdles that are still making for some customers that journey more difficult?
I think the reality in ERP right now is that most customers, do not have that standardized flow of processes. And sometimes, particularly when you go to a manufacturing world, it's actually really hard to get there as well. And in addition, the ERP, so that I think is one element, right? Like, how do you actually become organizationally ready, standardize your processes, and have that culture change? That is a main piece to get that done. I think the second part of it is it's also just risk, right? So, when you guys at Beyond Technology moved to public cloud in 2016, that was risk, right? If you guys are not able to close your books, send out invoices, you get into trouble pretty quickly, right? And if production lines stop, companies, this is always in the ERP world, SAP would take this extremely seriously, right? Like, it is how the economy and things run. A HR system can go down for 24 hours. It's a super nuisance, but it's not the end of the company, right? Is at a lot of our customers, if our ERP system, our SAP system doesn't run for a week, you're reporting to the street. You're having massive write-downs. You are potentially going out of business, right? And I think that makes that ERP move difficult for a lot of customers, right? There's there's a lot of work to get done to standardize those processes. And then at the same time, you're kind of fixing the plane midair, right? And that plane needs to keep flying.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the openness, the opportunity to reconnect with you, and I hope this opens now a more recurrent.
I'd love to connect.